Welcome. It's a weekly wrap up, a
Not done yet.
Q&A of healing from A to Z with Masterful U, me, and KB. Are we good?
We we are good.
We're still wrinkling out the process, friends. This
It
week's programming is brought to you by the letter B: betrayal, beauty myth, binge eating, and business struggles. I am Judy Forder, and I am here with the fabulous.
CRISPR. CRISPR. Good morning.
Welcome, everybody. Hello, Chris. How are you today?
I am really well. How are you, Judy?
Outstanding. I got a little of the poison ivy going on from working in the yard last weekend, but I'm doing okay. Itchy, but good.
Great.
I am itching for some answers. I can tell you that.
I like what you did there.
See? Ah, okay. So, do we want to dive right into our questions?
Yeah. Well, before we do, and thanks for the gentle nudge. I wanted to make the point that when I do these videos during the week, they're, 15 or 20 minutes. They're meant to plant seeds, to drop ideas, to maybe give a different way of looking at something. It's not meant to be the whole thing. We can't go super deep in 15 to 20 minutes. So these weekly wrap-up sessions are where we can explore further. So if you have questions or comments or ideas, we would love you to share so that we can go a little bit deeper. And then, of course, you've always got masterfulu.com, the resources there, and look around the world. There are people offering healing journey support everywhere.
Yeah. We always like to remind people you find things that feel right and perfect for you. Keep what aligns, throw the rest away. Excellent. Okay, so remember, if any questions come up, even during the Q&A, if it generates more questions, just put them in the comments below and we check them and we'll be sure to address them.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to start with day one: betrayal. Betrayal. And again, we haven't had a lot of activity as far as questions are concerned. So I have some of my imaginary friends that have come along to ask some questions.
Wonderful. I love them.
Okay, so our first question comes from Belinda in Bermuda.
Ah.
Her question is, how do you begin to trust again when you've been betrayed by someone you still love?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Boy, it's not a really quick and easy answer, but the truth of the story is that we need to get in touch with what's that root cause of what's going on inside of me where this betrayal became part of my reality. For example, in the past, when I personally was in relationships where I was the betrayer or the betrayed, there was a loss of connection in the relationship. The betrayal didn't happen in this warm, connected, honest, truthful, supportive relationship. It happened in a relationship where both of us were acting out past pain patterns, past traumas. We didn't know that. We were unconscious at the time. And it seemed like the other person was the source of our problems. Over time and working through the pain and making a commitment to, I don't want to operate from pain anymore. I want to be able to operate from love. Eventually, you get to a place where you do love yourself and enough that you can love the other person unconditionally as well, right? That you can let the past be gone and that you can make new agreements to operate in a new way and recognize that ultimately the connection is your responsibility, communicating the nature of the agreement, your expectations, and being honest with one another. That is your responsibility for both of you. But at the end of the day, if the relationship isn't right or the work situation, whatever the betrayal might be about, if it's not right for both of you, a parting of the ways is not necessarily a betrayal.
A parting of the ways is not necessarily a betrayal. That's a big nugget right there.
Yeah. And it kind of runs counter to everything that we've learned about, if somebody ends up being in a relationship or a work environment where they're like, wow, this is not for me,
Mm-hmm.
and they decide that they're going to leave, the tendency is to blame that person.
Yes.
They should have stayed. They should have sucked it up like everybody else does. They should have. We have all these shoulds for them. And if they don't, then they're forced to carry the guilt and the shame for life. And the people who are left behind in that situation get to be the victims who are angry, who everybody kind of circles the wagons around and says, poor you. The problem with that is once we identify with being a victim of betrayal, we're going to have to continue to act that out
Mm.
until we see our role in it, until we see the place where we can create something different.
Yeah.
It's not to say that it's our fault. It's not to say that we're responsible solely for it happening. It's to say that until we find out how we're contributing to the environment where betrayal is likely, then we can't do anything different.
Mm.
So it's about finding out, where am I acting in this situation and how can I do something different so that we can have a different outcome together.
Yeah. And I think that leads perfectly to the next question of, can betrayal come from yourself? And how do you heal from that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, every time, I remember the first time I got married. I've been married more than once. And I remember the first time that I got married, I remember standing there and thinking, I don't know if this is the right thing to do. Like standing at the big front of the church and thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is the right thing to do. That's a good example of betraying yourself, because my intuition actually said, you know, this isn't your forever person. On the flip side of that, I wouldn't trade it.
Mm-hmm.
The lessons, the fun, the love that we were able to share, we did.
Mm-hmm.
And two wonderful children came out of it who have absolutely blessed my life. So I don't consider it to be a mistake. I think it was a betrayal of the self in terms of me dismissing a part of myself without really looking at it.
Yeah. And there are some that could argue that all betrayal from others begins with self, because you betray yourself, which opens the door.
Sure.
Like you said, you just continue to create experiences where that betrayal is real.
Sure. Because if the truth of inside of you, if what you feel in your, at the instinct, intellect, intuition, inspiration levels is not all aligned and there's a conflict inside of you, then when you're interacting with anybody else, you can't be 100% honest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if you're not being 100% honest, chances are good you're connected to somebody else who's also not able to be. And I think it's important to say not able to be at this time,
Yes.
not able to be yet. Doesn't mean they're a bad person or they will never be honest or, they're a fink or any of the other things that we hear these days. It just means at this time they are not able to be aligned internally with their truth. They don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And if they did know what it was, they would tell you.
And it's safe to say that at the time you two got together, and I'm saying you two as in you two, not you and specifically your husband,
Right.
ex-husband, what attracted you was each of your wounds.
Yeah.
It was like trauma bonding. They have that big term being thrown around now, but that's because we're looking for someone to fill those voids.
Yes.
So that trauma bonding is very real. And if one of you starts to dive inside and do, wants a better life and starts to do that healing work and the other one doesn't, things fall out of alignment because we're aligned in those trauma bonds. That's
Yes.
alignment.
Yes. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll know, it's the pattern, it's the whole environment. It's like your family is the environment where you learn about yourself and about life, but your family lives within the microcosm of the society, the
Hmm.
local society that you live in, which is then in the microcosm of humanity. It's like there are layers of each layer trying to learn how to react to its environment. So, as an individual, you're figuring out, how do I survive being in this family? As a family, you're figuring out, how do I survive being in this society?
Hmm.
Right? As a society, how do I figure out being in this global environment or national or, whatever level of society it is? So
Hmm.
there is no like individual or family that's living on an island. We're actually trying to figure out how to adapt, given that what's happening in these different environments is happening the way it is, and
Hmm.
we're perceiving it the way it is. So if I grow up in a family that has adopted by being ashamed victims in their society, then I'm going to go out and connect with another person who's an ashamed victim, because that's what I know.
Yep.
Any other pattern will seem bizarre to me. Even a happy pattern, maybe especially a happy pattern, will seem bizarre to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like that. I don't even know what that is. That's weird.
Yeah.
Why
What a
get happy
weirdo.
all the time? I've heard that. I have said that. Like whatever
Yes.
she's on, I want that. Whatever he's on, I want some of that.
Yes.
Because it does seem so foreign.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Can't you see the reality of the situation? If you grow up in an environment where you're constantly feeling oppressed and downtrodden
Hmm.
and complaining about work and complaining about your boss and complaining about, your bills and all of those things, but feeling like you're powerless to do anything about it, then you're going to connect with somebody else who does that because it's all you know. That's how you talk.
Yes.
It's how you connect and interact is through complaining.
Hmm. And you remain powerless
Yes.
times two.
Yes. 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 And then because you thought that this other person was going to bring in a new experience for you, like my life will be better when I'm married, when I'm a grown up, when I'm whatever, and you think this other person is going to bring in a new experience, but actually they bring in what you already know because that's what you were looking for
Right.
unconsciously.
Unconsciously. Yep. That's the key right there. And that's the work that Masterful You does, is diving into the unconscious and bringing it to the conscious,
Yes.
because we don't know these things until we know these
That's right.
things.
That's right. And I'm always saying it's like the unconscious is like the magic toaster, and I have toast every morning, so it's like a double joke, right? But it's like you put the toast in, your conscious mind says, okay, I need to know what's getting in my way. You put the toast in, you push it down, and you wait for it to pop. And the unconscious is going to deliver, this is what's getting in your way.
Hmm. Yes. And it all starts with truth,
Yeah.
and the truth within yourself. Excellent.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some good stuff right there. Okay. Moving on to beauty myth.
Mm.
Yes. Beauty myth, I immediately go to society. So we have Sally from Georgia that says, how do I stop comparing myself to others, especially on social media?
So the first things that come to my mind are turn off your computer.
Right. Stop with the social media.
Right. Get off the social. I mean, which is funny because here we are.
On social.
Um, right. And there are a lot of good things, social media about social media. There are a lot of good things, but one of the risks that we have is that it is a way to compare ourselves. And unfortunately, to compare ourselves to the images that people present versus the reality of the experience. It's one of the reasons that I'm constantly saying we've got to get back inside our experience, value the truth of your experience, what's going on with you. Don't worry about what you think is happening out there or what you think other people think is happening. Because the truth is actually in your experience, the only thing that we have any control over. And as it turns out, it's all we need
Hmm.
is our own experience, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're saying and doing, what we're sensing in our bodies, and what we know, what we intuitively know to be true. So from that position, if I'm so focused on, there is so much information in your unconscious, you could spend the rest of your life literally like digging around in there, finding gold, and then implementing that in the world, like changing your life with it, creating new possibilities and new wonders. When you are so full of like, whoa, discovery, look at this, look what I found, now I can do this, and that joy, then you won't care what's going on with other people or what you think is going on with other people because you'll be in love with yourself and your life, your experience.
Mm.
And your experience, being in love with you and your experience is just for you. Like nobody else can have that.
Mm.
They can have it in their experience, but if you're not inside finding out what's amazing and brilliant and beautiful about you, then who is? Right?
True that. And I'm just hearing, okay, I get it. But everywhere you turn, and this is something that I read. I didn't fact check, but I was reading that back in 1950s is when they started the public campaign of women having to be the perfect housewife, the perfect mother, the perfect this, the perfect that. So then everything since then is about how you're not enough. You're not
Right,
pretty enough. You're not smart enough. You're not thin enough. You're not active enough. You're not enough.
right.
Because if they can keep us hating who we are and how we look, they make a lot of money.
Absolutely, they do. And that's all about the appearance, right? That's all about living in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's about living in ideas, about projecting yourself into the future, into a reality that doesn't exist, and imagining that it's going to be better than what's happening now.
Yep.
The problem with that is most of us aren't actually in our own experience right now,
Mm-mm.
right? And the way creation, manifestation works is that the way you feel in your experience while you're creating your reality, while you're making choices, if that's an easier way for people to think about it, the
Mm-hmm.
way you feel when you're making those choices, whether you're optimistic and you're, hopeful and you're energized, or you're saying, why bother? What's the point? And you're, in a more negative modality, that's going to determine what kind of choices you make and what kind of outcomes you get.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk a lot about energy. Your energy doesn't lie.
Mm-mm.
So I can sit here and say all these positive words, but if on the inside, I'm still beating myself up, self-loathing and all that kind of stuff, that's energy attracts. Words have meaning and they
Yeah.
have power.
Yeah.
So don't, I'm not going to discredit that at all, but your energy doesn't lie.
It's true. And these exercises we do in these videos each day are about get inside your own experience. Where are you? On that scale of 1, I don't want to get out of bed, and 10, I'm like grateful for everything that's ever occurred to me in my life. Where are you? Right? And there's no judgment. It's so important. Often people are like, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be in a bad place. The thing is that asking yourself where you are and taking stock is an act of love. It
Yes.
doesn't put you where you are. It says, I love myself enough to see the truth of where I am so that I can take action in a positive direction on my own behalf.
Yes. You're empowering yourself. When you know the truth of where you are, that is power,
Yes.
because then you have the power to make different choices should you choose.
Yes.
And it's all about free will, choice.
Right. Right.
It's funny. I'm hearing, how many times have we been at social events and you're watching people and they look absolutely miserable. And then you get home and on Facebook, they got a couple of these shots that make it look like it was the biggest function of the year. Everybody had a blast. And oh my goodness, I wish I could have been there. I was there. And I was like, when did that happen?
Right. Right. Exactly. It's a big show. It's become about appearances. I mean, that's what marketing is.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing is about creating this idea that if you had this thing, your experience would be better.
Yep.
right? And eventually we learn over time, hey, there are lots of products and services that will absolutely make your experience better. But if you're not in your experience taking ownership of it, then you can't be clear about what it is that you actually want and need. And if you're not clear about that, how can you make a decision about what's going to help you with that?
Amen. Amen. So, with all of that being said, um, I thought this was a great question. What has helped you personally break free from beauty pressures? Because, they know this, Chris, KB. They don't know the bleach blonde businesswoman that used
Yeah.
to exist. And
Yeah.
you aren't beautiful. Absolutely, you are. But you bought into all that as well.
I absolutely did. I'm trying to remember where it kind of started that I started questioning that. Actually remember I was married to my current, we weren't married yet. I was dating my current husband. We were living in New York. I was consulting, and I had started realizing that the world, the society I lived in was not what I thought it was. That it was not actually, trying to help people. That like the reason people were struggling so much is because society was creating a lot of struggle. Whether intentional or not doesn't even matter, right? I just started realizing like this thing is set up in a way, like we could make some changes and people would have much better lives.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people, whenever we have systems and people make their way to the top of those, institutions and everything is working from their perspective, then of course they're going to be reluctant to change that because my God, they worked so hard to climb to the top of that system. So I started realizing these things and I started questioning what I wanted to be affected by. I became a little bit obsessed with this is my life story and who is the author of that story or who is the authority, right? The
Mm-hmm.
author of my life. And I really wanted to make sure that I was. I decided that I would sort of live or die. I was willing to take responsibility for my experience and whatever came out of that, but I wanted to be in the driver's seat. I wasn't just because I also looked at society and said, like people are having midlife crises. They're getting sick. They're ending up penniless in, glorious retirement. Like all of these things are happening. I was like, I don't think I want to be on that train. Like it just looks like a bad deal. And you can see people as they're getting older, these women, particularly men too now,
Mm-hmm.
um, but women particularly, starting to fall apart as their looks fade because that was how they presented themselves to the world. That was their value. And I started seeing that, them going under for plastic surgery and all kinds of other things, and me just being like, oh my, like surgery and me, not it just is like, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought, wow, this is not a bus I want to be on. How do I avoid that? Like, how do I make a different decision? And I started to think, I gotta get comfortable in my skin. I've got to find a way to get comfortable. Like, however I'm presenting in the outside world, like I've got to be good with that. Can I love myself enough that the way I present myself today is lovely, sort of like the story of the rose. Like the rose that's dead is also the rose that was a tiny bud. And is there any place in that rose's journey that it wasn't a rose?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Can I see the beauty in the baby and the beauty in the old woman and the beauty at every stage in between because it's a full expression of what I am, of the essence of what I am? Can I fall in love with that? And so I stopped wearing makeup. I stopped dyeing my hair. Um, I would wear jeans and cowboy boots because I love horses. So I would wear jeans and cowboy boots and like flannel shirts to go in on these big consulting projects to corporate environments. And I fully expected people to, you know, look down on me or be dismissive or whatever. And I got a completely different reaction. I found out that the men were sort of more relaxed around me. Like they would say things like, "You're the coolest consultant we know." Just like they would just be more relaxed.
Uh-huh.
And I noticed that the women were friendlier. When I didn't go in looking like, a jet-setting consultant with the perfect nails and the perfect hair and the perfect makeup and the perfect suit, when I didn't go in trying to present myself as, "Look at me," and I just went in as, "Hey, how are you? I'm here to help."
Hmm.
It changed the energy and it actually improved my experience and it improved my consulting. The results, because they warmed up to me more quickly. They weren't trying to find out who was behind the mask because I was showing up without the mask.
That's exactly what I heard. Yep. There was no more like, who is this really? It's like, oh,
Yeah,
here she is.
yeah, this is me. When I get out of here, I'm gonna go do something fun. Like it was that kind of, I'm gonna reveal the truth of myself to you. And it was scary. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that like at first it was really scary. Just walking down the street without makeup, I felt unacceptable.
Mm. Yeah. Well, you were in New York.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's funny because we have the opposite experience. I was one that never wore makeup. I was just me and, you know, dealing with all the stuff inside me that's me. So when I would wear makeup, it would draw attention.
Mm.
And I would be like, I don't know about that.
Ah,
Yeah. So it's about that comfort level. Now I'm comfortable. I'll line the eyes and put some mascara on and I'm good to go. I don't
yeah.
need anything else. It's
Yeah.
very basic, but and that I'm hearing you need to share this. And that is because everybody comments on my eyes. So if I highlight my eyes, they don't look anywhere else. That was the mindset behind that. So that's still
Wow.
hiding.
Yeah. In a way, and I dye my hair now. I have my hair dyed with henna, and I wear a little bit of makeup when I do videos because it keeps my eyes from
Appearing.
disappearing. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But now the thing is that it's more about choice. It's not because I think I'm unacceptable without it.
Exactly.
It's because it augments a little bit.
Yeah.
And I allow myself to augment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because of some need to cover up the truth of me.
No, you're
If
not
I
hiding.
had, no, if I had to come on here, I mean, watch my videos. You'll see me outside in the morning. I'm not taking a shower before I go to the horse barn in the morning. You see me out there. My hair is like frizzy with the humidity of the day. I walk my dog before I get there, so there might be a little sweat happening. Like I'm showing up as me without a mask to have a real connection with people who are looking to connect with themselves.
Yeah. And that, yeah, the whole beauty myth thing, it's about balance and finding where you feel completely aligned and comfortable showing up and being you.
Yes.
No hiding, just me. And whatever that just me is, that's what is right and perfect for you. We're not saying you got to strip all the makeup and don't do this, don't do that. We're saying find where you are comfortably you.
Yes. Yes. And right. Such an important point. The reason I took that path
Mm-hmm.
was because I started out in a place where I literally would not leave the house without my hair and makeup being done because I felt that that was unacceptable.
Yeah.
Like I looked too bad to be seen out in the world. And so for me, I needed to strip that away and find out if I could be comfortable in that. And then when people responded to me so positively, I was like, oh.
Yes. It saved you a lot of damn money, didn't it?
It did. It actually did save me a lot of time and a lot of money. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny. We're rewatching The Marvelous Miss Maisel.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And it always cracks me up how they go to bed with their husband. And then when he's asleep, they hop out, take all their makeup out, roll up their hair, jump back in bed, and then get up before them, do everything back on, and then lay there like nothing happened.
Right. Right. That's such a good example. Yeah.
Yeah. Too crazy. All right.
Mhm.
Excellent. We're going to go on to another one of my favorites, binge eating.
Yeah.
Now, this episode, people need to go check it out. She had a special guest helping her that day.
I did. I had two of them that were helping me.
Addison was actually on screen.
Yeah, Dakota is in the very beginning, which
Ah,
is part of her. Yeah, part of her. Yeah,
okay.
it's funny. I set the camera up and the horses were like, "Oh, what's this? And what happens if I push the tripod?" And okay.
It was moving. There was some shaking going on. And they settled down, though.
They did. They got bored and they wandered out into the field. Yeah,
Yeah. Whatever.
exactly.
Okay, so you tackled the topic of binge eating. Okay, so this is actually a question from me,
Hmm.
Judy from Pennsylvania. How can I tell the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger?
That's a good question. Um, do the exercises. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I saying and doing to myself, right? What am I saying,
Mm-hmm.
doing? What do I sense in my body? Because where is hunger? Like real hunger is a physical experience
Mm-hmm.
that feel like in my body. And what do I know? Because intuitively, I know you well enough to know, you know, if you ask the question, right? And one of the tricky things about, whatever it is, binge eating, any kind of unconscious behavior, is that the instincts are trying to get you to do the behavior because it's perceived that that's going to make the situation better. We're going to feel better, and therefore we're going to survive longer. So when you start trying to kind of hack into that, you can get, your unconscious mind can create hunger symptoms, right? I mean, you will actually feel like, oh, my stomach's growling. I'm really hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And so it will start because it's actually convinced that you need to get that food. You need to start putting that food in order to feel better. And there's a whole bunch of things that happen, like the blood that we're using for thinking, chasing ourselves around in our minds, gets redirected to our stomachs for digestion, right? Which actually takes the edge off from that thinking. We get a little sleepy after we do a lot of eating. That can relax us. So we can ask ourselves some questions about what we're sensing in our body. Do I feel at peace or do I feel stressed? If I feel stressed, my eating is a stress reaction, and it's an attempt to get cortisol flowing, right? And to calm myself. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I'm trying to bring about to people's attention is that you can choose whether or not you're going to do that unconscious behavior or not. And in order to choose that, you have to be aware that it's happening. And then in order to actually stop it from happening, and I shouldn't say stop, in order to cultivate an internal landscape where something else is going to happen in a stress situation instead of that eating, we
Mm-hmm.
actually need to get in there and find out what is it that makes me think that this eating is going to save me. What am I trying to save myself from? And where did that seed get planted?
Yeah, that's outstanding. Chris and I have talked a lot about eating over the years. Um, you have shared your experience with being overweight. I talk about mine. And just in the past 6 months, and do this responsibly if you want to give it a try, but I've done 3-day water cleanses. And it's in that because, yes, I've been in tune with the emotional eating. I understand that I need something crunchy when I'm angry and things like that. But when I was going through the 3-day cleanse, especially the second time, the first time was just about getting through it. I had to prove to myself that I could do it. The second time I was more in touch with, okay, when I'm feeling hungry, am I really hungry? So exactly what you were just saying. And the fact that I didn't allow myself to go to the food, it was a choice.
Right.
I didn't allow myself to go to the food to calm whatever was going on. I was asking more questions.
Yes.
to figure out, to get to the root of, okay, so this, because my body doesn't know what true hunger feels like, because I feel like I've been emotionally eating since I was little.
Sure.
So in order for me to figure out the difference in how it felt and where it would show up in my body, you know, a lot of the emotional hunger would be heart racing, things like that. Whereas when I'm physically hungry, I can feel it in my stomach.
Yeah.
And it may sound crazy, but it's like asking my stomach, are you really hungry, or is there something else going on?
Right, because it can be either. And, you know, there's this whole thing about the bacteria in our stomachs become addicted to certain substances or certain foods, and they start sending the signal up that says, hey, send down the, you know, the Oreos or whatever the thing is. Especially with sugar. Sugar can be one of those things. So when I notice, like I have a sweet tooth, and when I notice that my body is sending up more like, oh, I think you need something sweet to eat things, I get a bunch of fruit. So when I get that signal and I ask, like, am I really hungry? I'll have the pear or the banana or the other, like, particularly sweet fruit satisfy that. And I find that the craving will go away like pretty quickly, because it's not the sugar that it needs. It's like it needs I don't know, to close the loop. Right? Like sometimes you can just close the loop with something that's like, I'm going to give you another alternative that's actually healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with that, it ties to the whole mind game, because the binge eating leads to shame and blame and all that kind of stuff. And when you replace it with something healthy, a healthier sugar, you know, substitute, then you don't have the blaming and the shaming, and it's the exact opposite. Look at me, I did something healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is that, like, it's important not to be at war with yourself because you can't win. Right? So it's really about taking in the information, like, what does my body say it needs right now? What does my intellect thinking I need? What does my intuition say? What does my inspiration say? And then how do I weave that together and do something that feels right to me? Because all of those bits of information need to be integrated. Otherwise, I'm living in one zone. If I'm unconscious eating all the time and then justifying it or beating myself up, I'm not accessing my higher levels of intelligence.
Oh, can you hear the lawnmower running?
No,
Okay, good. My brother's cutting the front yard. I got a little distracted, hoping it wasn't being picked up.
no, your microphone got the slightest bit muffled, which I think might be the noise canceling for the lawnmower, but it's very.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah.
We're gonna move along to business struggles. Ah. All of these questions could have been from me, but
Oh, yes.
yes. Okay, let's start with Tilly from Texas.
Great. Hey, Tilly.
Hey, Tilly. What if I feel like my work is meaningful, but I'm still burnt out?
Yeah. So, Tilly, in the business struggles, I talk about it's all about people. It's all about people. It's all about people. I don't care how many robots are doing the job, it's all about people. Right? So, people start businesses, people run businesses, people set direction for businesses. They also are your vendors, they're your customers, right? This is all about people. You are people number one. You are grand central, if you will, right? You are the person, the energetic magnet that is going to attract more of what you are in your experience. So if you are burned out, it's going to be desert land in every direction, right? We're not attracting anything when we're burned out. We really want to be in a place of like, how do I create a routine for myself that nourishes me? How do I start my day at an hour of the day when I have a lot of energy? What are those things that I do in the morning that help me to get into a frame of mind where I can be effective and efficient and clear? How long do I work before I get to a place where it's time for me to take a break? And how do I take that break? Do I give myself permission, or do I tell myself that I should be different than I am?
Mm.
Because every time I say to myself, you did this wrong, you should be more like this, that's not long enough, I'm actually in battle with myself, and I'm using energy to shut myself down instead of figuring out how to get myself into alignment so that I can put my energy out into the world in a way that will attract back what it is that I'm looking for.
Mm. That's huge. That
Yeah, I just think thinking of yourself as the magnet, as like whatever experience you're having, to go back to the compass, right? It's like, I love the simplicity of it. Go back to the compass. If you're at a 3, your business is going to be struggling.
Mhm.
If
You're
you were at a 3 in your
free.
business, yes, your business is going to be struggling. When you get to a 5, you're actually getting to a place where good things and bad things will happen.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
will feel arbitrary and right, whatever. But you're in that place where it's like, okay, it can be positive, it can be negative, because I'm kind of, we don't sit in one place. It's just we're operating in that range. We're going up and down. When you start getting into that 7, 8 territory where you're like, I'm really honoring the truth of me.
Mhm.
I'm really being clear about what it is that I need, what it is that makes me happy, what it is that energizes me. And I'm listening to that. And I'm telling myself, good for you for figuring that out. Good for you for honoring that. I'm really proud of you for what you've done today. When you're operating in that, you become a magnet, because who doesn't want to be around somebody? Yesterday we had 2 people working in the house because we're doing a little renovation, and both people had brought their kids to work, and neither one of them knew the other one knew that we had both of them coming, and they had both asked, because that's how we are.
Mhm.
And I said to them, I made a point of going down the hall and saying to them, like, isn't it wonderful that you both brought your kids to work today? And what a better world we would live in if this were always the way it was.
Mm.
Right? It's summertime. The kids were learning. One was younger and watching a video, and another one was helping his dad. And I thought about that. Like, they want to be in that environment, because here they are thinking, oh my God, I hope it's okay. Like, I'm bringing my kid in. They're expecting people are going to be like, oh my God, I'm not, I don't want to pay you if you're also babysitting or whatever the thing is. But because I'm bathing myself in this loving energy and telling myself how great whatever it is that I'm up for right now is, I overflow that into other people. And then that attracts those people. Like, they want to be around you because it's good to be around people that are kind and loving and appreciative.
Yes, respectful,
Yes.
understanding. You didn't berate them or judge them because they had to bring their kid to work. You opened your
Absolutely.
arms and welcomed it and talked about how great it was.
Yes. And we have a client who, is very clear about the fact, like, you do whatever you got to do your life, because I value you being you.
Mhm.
Like, being in the energy that you're in, I value that much. It's life changing when we give ourselves permission to take good care of ourselves and let people see, yeah, I'm taking good care of myself and it feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I know, uh, especially early on when I started powered by your soul, um, the ambition and self care. How do you find that balance between the ambition, especially when it's appointment based, client based, where if I'm not working, I'm not getting paid. So
Hmm.
how do you balance that with self care?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's partly looking at what your goals are. And this is something that people in feel-good businesses often don't do.
Feel
Like,
good. This is.
yeah, like we'll tend to shy away from the numbers, like looking at the numbers. But it can be as simple as saying, okay, how much money do you want to make in this business? Right? I mean, how much money do you want to make in a week or in a month? How much do you charge for appointment?
Mm-hmm.
How many appointments are you going to have? When are the best hours for you to work?
Mm.
You set that time aside. And again, it's the intention. It's like, okay, I'm going to do X number of clients every week. Who cares if it takes you a year to get to that level consistently? And that's the point too. Once you decide that's what it's going to be, this is what will work for me.
Yeah.
And I may change my mind. I may get to 10 clients a week and be like, whoa, I wouldn't want to do a single client more. Reassess. Give yourself permission to say, this is too much. It's more than I thought it would be. Or you might find out, oh, I could do group sessions and I could make twice as much money with half as much time. And it turns out my clients would all love it anyway.
Right.
Right? So we just start with what's your intention, carve out that time. And then during those sessions, if you don't actually have sessions, spend that time working on how can I create sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Explore and experiment.
Explore and experiment. How can I reach out to people? What can I do in this time? So this is work time. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to be, you know, the word regimented, no. Okay, disciplined.
Disciplined. I was.
Yeah, I was thinking regimented, but I'm like, no, because it's not regimented.
Mm-hmm.
But it is disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
It is about because you're the one that's driving the bus. So you get to say, if I want to do, 50 clients in a month,
Mm-hmm.
and that means I'm going to do 12 and a half every week. When are the hours when I am most in that energy of service?
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, like 2:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon, that's a whoosh, like a low energy time for me. I come back, I
Mm-hmm.
rebound from it, but I don't want to be setting up client appointments at 2:30.
Right. Yeah, I think that's crucial. You put down what works best for you, because I know in the times that you want, because this is a process you and I went through. We have done this. We are living this way now because we were the ones that thought, that kept working and working and working and grinding and grinding and grinding and burning out and being like, we can't do this anymore. And oh my gosh, how can we make this work? And when we started created our schedules, shall we say,
Mhm.
around and scheduling self-care time.
Yes.
This is my time for me. I love the fact that you made, if you don't have clients booked, you're still going to take that time to focus on business. Because what I did was I didn't have clients booked, and then I'd take that time to beat the shit out of myself for not having clients booked,
Right.
which
Right.
didn't help anything.
No, and you're setting up win-win,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is no matter what happens, you win.
Yeah.
If I get this time to work on marketing, or I get this time to follow up with people, old clients I haven't talked to in a long time, to send out some gift certificates, to sit and daydream about what, new exciting thing I can do. No matter what I do with this time, I'm putting energy into my business. I'm communicating to myself,
Mm-hmm.
the universe, this matters to me.
Yes.
I'm putting energy into this.
Yes.
And in a positive vibration, not in a vibration of this isn't working, blah, 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 right? Because remember, like Judy said, words are power. What we say and do is going out there into the world. And it's, I think of it sometimes as requesting, you go to a restaurant and they come and say, what will you have?
Yep. What's your
Right?
order?
Yeah. What is your order? Because that's what's going to come. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we say, oh, it never works out, the universal, okay, well,
All right, that's not going to work.
you
And
still want that? You've been ordering that for 20 years. You still want that?
and yes, we've both done this before, where okay, we're sitting, we've put the order in, we've, as you said, the toaster, we put it in the toaster, we're waiting, we're waiting, we're waiting, we're waiting, oh, we're waiting, we're doing such a great job waiting, I can't wait anymore. And we're
Yes.
probably that close to it breaking free,
Yes. Yes.
and we
And
sabotaged ourselves.
absolutely. And I also think that's part of it. It's like we're not meant to wait. It's an active
Yes.
thing. So that's why activity, it does require activity. You
Action.
know, there's setting intention. It's the whole experience, the saying and the doing and
Hmm.
interviewing yourself. That is activity,
Yeah.
right? Getting in touch with your own experience. Where am I? What's getting in the way? What can I let go of? What can I do more of? How can I make my routine that much more nourishing to me? Right?
Yes.
And I don't actually like the word self. It's not that I think self-care is a bad word, obviously, but I don't think that way. Like, I think of it as being an integrated human. And this has been like a recent thing
Mhm.
where I'm like, the mother that I am, and the wife that I am, and the employee that I am, and the business owner, and like all of the things, the horse person, like all of those things are actually me.
The healer that you are.
The healer that I am, right? Yes. Like all of the things that I am are me.
Hmm.
And so I cut out time in the day to put energy into each of those things because it feeds energy back into me.
Yes.
Right? And giving myself time, I flow from one to the next. Like time with my dog flows into filming the videos, flows into doing healing and other fun things with the horses, which, flows into work time,
Hmm.
which I'm kind of going to come up with a different word for because
Yes.
it's, you know, work automatically, oh, I got to go to work.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's actually not that
A couple
experience.
weeks ago. It's and
Yeah.
because it's you gotta go to work. The work that we do, we're like, there's not a word for it because it's our passion, it's our purpose, it's what lights us up, it's
Yeah.
why we're here.
Right. Right. And that's exactly the point, is that all of the things that I choose in my day are part of my purpose,
Yes. Yep.
right? And so that's why um I think it's not about waiting. So if you're wanting to do work of a certain nature and you find that, going for walks in the woods puts you in a place where your mind is free to imagine and to get inspiration, that's that's your work. That's you living your purpose.
That's
Right?
all.
It's all connected. And I'll tell you, it took me a long time to be able to go into the woods. I bet a lot of people can relate to this. I was somebody who'd be like, oh, I walked 5 miles and I did it in 45 minutes, or, whatever the numbers were.
Right.
I'd get on the scale. I'd get all these different ways of like, how fast did you do it? How long did you do it? All of these kinds of things. And now well, there was a transition period where in order to break that, I would go out and see how long it could take me to walk a path in the woods. How much time can I take?
Mm.
Right? It was like, and then it's not a race. It started out, it was a measurement because I only knew how to measure. I only knew how to measure and score and decide if that was good or bad. And because I thought good was fast,
Hmm.
I used that mind game to kind of say, well, what if good is slow?
Hmm.
And when good is fast sometimes and good is slow sometimes, good goes away.
It just is.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. Releasing the judgment of everything
Yes,
allows things to just be what they are. And the
right.
one question I keep hearing over and over again is, the do part of it, the actions that you're taking. One of the greatest questions you can ask yourself is, this is what I'm going to do, feeding the future that I want or keeping me in the past?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
we have one more question that I think is perfect. I'm torn between two of them. Um, but I think this is great because it'll give people a good insight on you. What's one business struggle that taught you the most about yourself?
Oh, wow. Um, So I care a lot about truth. Maybe it's because I'm a Sagittarius. Maybe it's,
Woo,
I
woo.
don't, right? Yeah, exactly. A lot of us. Um, yeah, I think I care so much about truth, and I care so much about making it safe for people to share the truth.
Mhm.
I just know that if people are afraid to share the truth, they're not going to.
Right.
And then we can't be truthful. And so I feel like in communication, we need to make it safe for people to tell the truth. And then we need to tell the truth, right?
Mhm.
Like that's how interaction works. That's what Own Your Interactions is all about, actually, is learning how to do that.
Right.
First, you learn how to do it for yourself, and then you learn with other people. And the biggest thing I learned is how unusual that is.
Mm.
I took people at face value often, like people who were, successful, who had done great things in the world. And I would think, well, this person must, be a straight shooter.
Mhm.
And I found that there are lots of different ways. And I'm not going to say that people were lying. I'm going to say I don't think they knew their truth.
Mhm.
And I think they felt like there was an opportunity for them to get something.
Mhm.
I don't think they could have even named what that was necessarily, but there was a sense that they could get something. And so they said and did what they thought they needed to say and do in order to get that situation. And I was operating from this, we're in agreement about the truth of what we want, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I discovered that that is not the default for people, and that actually people need, because people have learned it's not safe.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's be clear. They have learned it is not freaking safe. And I am also one of these people who I will say the truth when it's not safe. I would drop, the proverbial bombs everywhere. Just like I would just say the truth. I would just be like, "Mm, screw it. I'm going to say it." Now I don't. Now, if I feel like the truth isn't welcome, a lot of the times I'm like, why bother?
Right.
Right. But when I was younger, I'm a paradigm breaker. I'm a rule breaker. I'm not a conformist. I'm somebody who's here to help people to move into a new way of being, to evolve. And so it was in me to just resist the stuff that would try to put me into a box, including, saying the thing that everybody says, even when you know it's not freaking true.
So, yeah. So you working from that space of truth and integrity, assuming that others were doing the same.
Mhm.
That was your rude awakening when you found that not to be true.
Yeah. And I got sucked in by the marketing all over the place, by what people put out as their image. I would get sucked in and be like, oh, those people are so successful. They must be in this, place of truth. They must be in integrity with themselves. They must be in alignment. And over and over and over again, I found no, people are in their wounding. We're in our trauma. I'm not going to say that I'm not and that I haven't struggled to get through it. It's
Right.
even in that truth, even in that trauma and those reactions and those triggers. I remember sitting in meetings, business meetings, where tears would be streaming down my face, and I would be telling the truth of what I was experiencing, even though I didn't know how to heal the block or
Mhm.
how to change it and move it forward. But I was committed to, we have to tell the truth, because what else do we have?
Right. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and ask this other question I was stumbling with because I mean, what you just said is perfect. So
Hmm.
how did you sit there and deal with, comparison or imposter syndrome in business when you're the one sitting in boardrooms telling the truth with tears rolling down your face and everybody looking at you like you're from another planet?
That's a really good question. Um, I'm not sure I have an answer to that. I mean, other than there was some part of me. that was proud of me for having the courage.
Mm.
There was a time when I used to cry. People would call me overly sensitive or whatever, early on. And I would cry. And then actually there was a man who I consulted with. We were both consulting on a project early in my career.
Mhm.
And I started crying one day and I was so mortified. And he said, Chris, over the years, I've discovered that when people get upset, some people cry and some people rage.
Mm.
I would take somebody crying any day of the week.
Okay.
Shout out to Andrew. Thank you, Andrew.
Whoop, whoop. Go, Andrew.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I remember that. Obviously, I remember that. And over the years, I would think about, I'm crying, but am I hurting anybody?
Mm. Hmm.
And if I don't, there was a time when I had so much bottled in, where I was trying so hard to keep the truth of my experience from showing,
Hmm.
that when I started speaking a little bit, yeah, the emotion would come out because there was a lot of emotion that was buried in there.
Hmm.
And over time, I gave myself permission. I would even say to people, okay, I'm going to cry now. You don't need to be upset about it. It's just part of my experience. It's part of me releasing what needs to be said.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome because I was the rager.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
I was the rager. And I know that that rage did hurt people.
Well, when we don't understand,
Mm.
right? It's like people didn't need to take on my crying. Nobody needed to fix anything. But when you cry, people get uncomfortable.
Yes.
And you know what? When you rage, people get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And in either situation, like you and I learned together, I've cried with you, you've raged with me. And in both situations, we each had to learn to let you have your expression, whatever that is.
Yeah. And not feel responsible,
Right.
making it okay. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Awesome. Okay. I mean, it's always funny when we say, yeah, we're going to hop on for about 20, 25 minutes. And,
I know.
but these are important things.
Mhm.
The information is very important and it's not something that can be done lickety split,
No.
and that speaks to the process.
Mhm.
Chris and I laugh because we've been working with this stuff and shaping it ourselves and diving in and doing, and we're like, God bless people. It won't take you as long as it has taken us.
No, it will not. I mean, you will do in months what we did in years and years and years.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, it's really amazing. Hmm.
Okay. So that wraps up our wrap up for the week. Again, brought to you by the letter B. And we'll say again, questions, comments, anything that ahas or wait, what?
Yeah.
Anything that you want more information about or you just want to highlight, please put in the comments. And we'll love to read and find out what's going on with you and hone some questions more to answer what you have a desire for more information about.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So thank you, Chris. This is always fun.
Thank you, Judy. It was fantastic. And I just feel like saying to people, to be clear, this is about a journey of transformation from a place where you don't love being you in your life to a place where you do. There's no right or wrong way to approach that. But by sharing the fact that it's about the process, it's not about the destination because you never get there. You're always learning and growing and expanding and evolving. Right. So it really is about learning how to enjoy the process and celebrate the fact that you're showing up for yourself.
Yes.
'Cause that is what it's all about.
Amen. You loved yourself enough to show up.
Yeah,
That's where we start.
it is.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll see you next week.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye bye.